Evening, everybody. Matt Geary for the Geek Pride cast on this Monday evening. With me tonight, we have my co-host, Jon Jo Cosgrove.
Evening, people of the internet.
And our special guest this evening, we have Caimh Mc Donnell.
Hello. Very nice to be here.
And we had a big long discussion about pronunciations of your name and what it isn't and what it shouldn't be and what it derives
Welcome
from.
to my
life. Okay, so Caimh, who are you? What do you do? What's your thing?
Oh, Christ. Well, my name is Caimh Mc Donnell. I'm also known as CK McDonald these days because turns out Penguin Random House are terrified of saying the word queef to people. But basically, yeah, I used to be a stand-up comedian. I have now retired 5 years ago, surprisingly enough. Just before the lockdown, which, as my mate Gary says, is the greatest piece of comedic timing in my career, where I gave up stand-up just before everyone else had to give up anyway. But yeah, so basically, I start. My first book came out in 2016, and then 2019 I retired from stand-up because the book started doing well. And I basically write essentially two different streams of books. There's the Bunny McGarry books, the Dublin trilogy, which now has the 8th book, and it's coming out next month, I think. They're all sort of crime, Irish crime, with both, well, comedic elements and everything, really. And then there's the Stranger Times books, which are my fantasy series, which has been 4 of now, set in Manchester, in a sort of 14 Times type newspaper, to give people a brief overview of it. And I'm literally started writing the 5th one of that today.
So you've got what? I'm just looking at your list of books. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 books. Am I right? Or is there more?
Christ, no, I've got far more than that. That's just the Caimh Mc Donnell ones you're probably counting, and even then, I think there's 8 of the Dublin trilogies. I've counted out myself. There's so many books there. There's 8 in the Dublin trilogy now, although 7 are only out. And then there's I think basically this is my 20th book.
Wow.
There's also myself and the wife have also written a book, which is a fantasy book. Bizarrely, it's set in Germany, in Cologne. Right. It's based on a sort of Cologne. I mean, technically, it's a religious thing, but it really isn't. It's basically a fairy tale, a Cologne fairy tale. And we sort of found out about it on a tour and ended up making it into a series of books, effectively, which will be interesting, because the idea of somebody writing a series of books from this part of the world, writing a series of books set in Germany, in Cologne, is fairly new territory. We were in Cologne bookshops, and we told them we were in last time when we were launching a Stranger Times book, and they were going, wow, even German authors don't write books set in Cologne. We were like, okay, maybe we found a gap in the market, or we found a very good reason why people don't do stuff. We'll have to find out in May.
Well, so there's lots of threads to pull from there. So where to start? Where does one start? Comedy. So obviously that's what you started on. How long were you in comedy for, and what made you retire?
I think I would have been 18 years, 2001. I think I did my first gig. So I did 18 years on the circuit and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love stand-up comedy, and I was very lucky where I think I was full-time in it for about 14, 15 years. I say that I was also always writing TV. I wrote kids TV and sort of mainstream TV, for want of a better word.
What's for RTE, for BBC?
No, it was all I wrote kids TV. No, I never did anything for RTE. RTE bizarre. I say that RTE bizarrely produced a radio play that I wrote, that I went into a competition. It was the first thing I'd ever written.
All right, okay.
That I entered a competition, and then I got a phone call from RTE, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we've recorded it. We're going to put it out. We just need to pay you for it." It was like, you've already recorded it without having. That seems like a very odd way to do things. And I remember I flew home, because my first thing ever was sent out. Anyway, it's the only thing I've ever had on radio, actually. And I flew home to listen to it. Like, I'd already heard it, but to hear it actually on the radio, I flew home to Dublin just so I could hear it. So yeah, no. From there, I was kind of always writing sitcoms and stuff, and I ended up getting asked to do kids TV. And my agent at the time sort of said, "Do you want to write kids TV?" And I went, "No, I don't." And bless her, set my script in anyway. And they said, "Well, they've asked for a meeting," and ended up, thanks to that, was kind of the job I got to let me go full time and give up working in IT. And I did, many years working for basically one company. I did an awful lot with them. We had like a cartoon series that I created and stuff. that got BAFTA nominated and all that.
Whoa.
So I did all that. I had like loads of sitcoms that were kind of optioned. Like this is like sort of adult. That's the thing when you start talking about kids TV, you then have to say adult, and it sounds like you've written porn. I'm
waiting for you to go, but I did write some porn. Yeah.
Does anyone write porn really?
Well,
I've seen some high budget. I've seen some pretty high budget porn, to be fair.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, it's like it essentially comes down to what electrical compliance can break this time. No, it's yeah, but so I did I had loads of. I mean, I think at one point we figured out I had 10 different things optioned for TV in various different places, and I was kind of going around the houses, and then bizarrely I had an idea for a thriller, sort of contemporary thriller thing, which I've never written, by the way, but the book, and I started to write this book, and then realized I had no idea how to write prose, so I decided to do a master's in creative writing in MMU, and which I haven't finished, by the way, and I'm not going to. Spoiler alert, because I literally got to the point where I enjoyed the sort of workshops. They were the great bit.
Yeah.
And then they sort of had you reading books were kind of like, a lot of them are. I remember it was The Unbearable Lightness of Being, and it was just I think that's the one that was just so incredibly tedious that we all hated. But
we had a book in university that we had to read. I did a military history degree, and it was called The Deluge, and it was as boring as it sounds. It was a deluge everybody had to read it in year one, and it was horrendous. It was so bad.
I was saying, because bizarrely I was at the I was a guest at the Discworld convention.
Oh wow,
which was really cool in Birmingham. Yeah, it was really, really great. It was great. It was down in Birmingham just a few weeks ago. And we had to do the thing where one of the things we were doing was our Desert Island books, and they called it something different. And my one was, you probably don't know this because you're part of the world that didn't do it, but there's a book that anyone who had to go up to be educated in Ireland, Peg, it's basically this book about a little Irish granny living on the Aran Islands. Everyone she knows dies, famines. It's like nothing but pure misery. And I made that one of my Desert Island books because I wanted it basically, if I'm stuck in a desert island, you can read that and go, well, could be worse. And that was the idea. And then hilariously, people started looking it up and going, oh, there's an English version. I was like, don't buy it. And then people in the audience, I've already bought it. It's like, that's not, I wasn't trying to sell Peg books. And then my birthday was 2 weeks ago. And of course, my wife gave me a copy of it in English. Which was a funny joke, but then I keep seeing the cover in the house, literally going, oh, and it genuinely hurts my soul. And I don't know what to do with it because I can't burn it or anything, and I can't throw it in a bin because it's a book, but I hate the thing. So yeah, that was but I don't know where we came from, but basically, yeah, I had loads of sitcoms and stuff. I think we're saying, yeah, I started trying to write a book, and then I never wrote that thriller, but I started doing short stories, and then one of them got out of hand completely. Ended up being a novel, which I genuinely wrote as a practice. That ended up becoming A Man at One of Those Faces, which is the first book in the Dublin trilogy. And and then the rest sort of took off from there, really.
So this was while you were doing the comedy as well then? So
yeah, basically the great thing with, because I was writing TV and stuff, and then I just started getting more interested in the book side of things. And the great thing with stand-up is because it's it's mainly obviously nights, obviously, and weekends and stuff. You have time during the week, so I was able to spend far more time writing than kind of people who had normally day jobs were. So it meant I could focus more and kind of really put my foot down and have a go at it.
What sort of brought the comedy to an end? Was it the late nights and wanting to spend time with the family, or was something else? What was it?
No, we just the books took off. The simple thing of it, the books were because for the last couple of years I was mainly doing tour supports for my friends Gary Delaney and Sarah Millican. People might know the names, pretty big comics. And I was tour support for them a lot, and I was on the circuit less and less anyway, and I was sort of, the books were taking up more of my time. What actually got me to give up stand-up was all of my creative energies, my brain was just focused on books. So I wasn't really writing much more stand-up. And I just didn't want to be somebody who was just sort of hanging around, taking up room, frankly, on the circuit. Because Gary was like, oh, you can keep doing me sports and stuff. And I said, yeah, I don't want to be I don't want someone to come and see you on tour and then 2 years later come back and see you on tour. You're doing a whole hour, 15 minutes of new material, and I'm the bloke on before you doing 15 minutes of the same 20. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And luckily the books had taken off. So by that point, I mean, I went full time then. And then Elaine, my wife, she's now been full-time for a good few years running our company and stuff. So, yeah, it's been great. And at this point, the dogs are very used to having two people in the house, so we could never leave at this point. So that's
That's the one thing you find, like, because I work from home a lot, my dog's so used to me being there that if I even go out for a minute, he's like, "You're abandoning me," and he sort of goes absolutely mental. So that's why I have to bring him with me all the time.
Well, I get asked all the time, but would you ever go back and do stand up? And it's like, I've got dogs now. This was like, do you get me? Like, do you miss stand up? And you go, no, I've got dogs now. Like, they're way better than people.
But you saying about writing for TV as well as doing your stand up. I mean, when you're writing for TV shows, so I'm assuming the process when you're putting together material like that, if it's something for yourself or if it's something that you're writing for someone else, how does that differ when you're writing, say, when you're writing for your stand-up, or even say like when you're writing for your books? Do you have a similar process, or do you have like a different mentality for each part?
It kind of it's really pretty different, because books are always story based. At least for me, I'm never actually trying to write gags, if you like. Because every time I get asked this an awful lot at author events, it's like, how do you write comedy? And the answer really annoys people, which is I don't write comedy. I basically just write, like, I've got where I'm sitting right now, I've got a pin board right beside me, and there's all the cards that are laying out. This is actually the last book, but the next one's going up tomorrow probably. And these are all, but this whole card, there'll be like 60 cards here and all these notes on top of them. None of them will be for a joke. It'll all be, this is how the story runs. This is how the whole thing goes. And then, because my big thing is always, I like saying, comedy is not a genre in books. It is a style. It is how you tell the story, and everything has to be serving the story, or it shouldn't be there. So writing stand-up and stuff is very different. I mean, writing for TV and all is, because TV is basically everything has to be incredibly punchy. Like I did a lot for Mock the Week, for people on Mock the Week and stuff like that.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like I wrote a lot for Gary on it and stuff, and quite a couple of other comics, because I did an awful lot for Gary. One of the things I was very good at is, if anyone remembers Mock the Week, there was a pitch around.
I was just about to say, I feel like from what you've been telling me, you're going to say that you wrote a lot of the pitch around ones when it was the like, you know, like when it's like the spinning thing, it goes, oh, this is such and such.
I feel slightly betrayed that they didn't write their own material for that.
Oh, come on, you know they don't write their own material.
I thought because it was comedians, they would have done their own stuff. But, yeah.
Oh no. Well, basically, genuinely, how it works on those things are, I mean, they do a lot of their own stuff, and they do a lot, but if you get that stuff on like a Monday, you have to be ready to record on the Wednesday, and they like, bear in mind what you see on the TV is literally probably about I'd say maybe 1/8 of what's in the thing. About, we might do this story, might do this story. So it's impossible for anybody to come up with all that. Like Gary used to be like one of the big, Gary doesn't write for TV anymore, I think, at all anymore, but he used to be constantly being asked, because anyone doesn't know Gary Delaney, he's a brilliant one-liner comic. So the first thing is, a lot of comics, when they end up on TV, if they needed short, punchy stuff, they hired Gary, frankly, and then Gary was always writing on these things for lots of different people. And then Gary's the only person I know who actually went from being one of the big writers on British TV to then being on things, because he made the thing, because he's a brilliant stand-up in his own right. And then I always explain what Mock the Week is like. The first thing Gary did when he became regular on Mock the Week was he hired 3 people to be his writers, because he knew how much stuff there was, and he knew about covering all that, because it's very hard to ready for all that stuff. So it's one of these, like, I wrote on Sarah Millican's TV show as well and stuff like that. The one thing I always say when you say about that, like, it's because TV burns through comedies. Like, you can literally say something once and then it's gone forever. You can't reuse stuff. Yeah. So like when I say I wrote for Gary, when I wrote for Gary on Mock the Week and I wrote for Sarah on her TV show, that was on those shows. Like Sarah's tours and Gary's tours are always only ever their own work. There are comics about people writing their tours to them as well. But those two have never done that, and they never would. They don't like the idea of it.
That's the other thing as well, because topical shows, Mock the Week, Have Got News for You, things like that, they are, you know, about that week, you know, and something that lands then, as you say, the next week it'll be like, well, you couldn't repeat that joke, because
and genuinely that week that you're doing it is exhausting. Like when I was going through it, it was because like I used to, I mean, this is very unusual, but myself and Gary used to write stuff on the Monday, I'm gonna say, with the other people, and then we had a system where there was a gig down in the Midlands that we used to go to because he could try out stuff. So me and him would get in the car, he'd be reading through all the different lists of stuff. that he had, and he tried them out on me, and I'd be going, yes, no, I like that, and all that. And then he'd go on stage and do it, and I'd do some new material as well, because we're both down at this gig. And then we'd sort of rank it and then get back in the car, and we'd be talking through on the way back and stuff like that. Now, most people wouldn't go to that level of things, but Delaney is a little bit special in many ways. And yeah, so that kind of stuff is, but yes, it is. The reality is, a lot of what you see on Mock the Week is improvised, and it is them, but you want stuff in your back pocket, and Gary was always incredibly well prepared. But yeah, they all have writers working for them and stuff. Just on all those things, you generally do. Almost everybody, I think, if people go on and don't, they generally are the ones that end up sitting there looking a bit dumbfounded.
Right.
I know you want to go on to the next bit, Matt, but I will have to ask, because of doing stuff like that, and you always see like the compilations, you always see like the DVDs and everything when these shows are done. Is there a particular joke or a particular line that you wrote that really stood out, and one that you might recall and it still makes you laugh, or one that you can?
For Gary's one, I can't. I'm sure there was a few different. I can't remember. Actually, the line that genuinely pops into my head, more because it was such an odd thing, because I wrote a gag years ago. That was people say, well, let me remember the exact phrasing of it now. The gag was people say, the royal family bring a lot of tourists. The royal family bring a lot of foreigners into the country. So do long distance lorry drivers. Nobody's buying them a big house. Now, I tried that joke in stand up, and surprisingly enough, in my accent, people didn't like it. But when we gave it to National Treasure Sarah Millican on television, it was a massive round of applause in Salford when we were recording. And I remember thinking that time, I was literally standing beside Gary, who is Sarah's husband. And I can remember standing beside Gary going, you see, it's all right in her accent.
That's brilliant. That's
amazing.
brilliant.
Actually made me cry slightly. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that was worth it.
Okay, so the book started sort of taking off. When did you sort of kind of progress into the fantasy side of things? So obviously you did it's thrillers, was it? Sorry.
Yeah, the bunny books are sort of comedic thrillers, I guess. Yeah. I don't mind comedic thrillers. The phrase I really hate is comedy crime. Okay. Every time someone describes them as that, I always feel like, because I always say comedy crime just conjures the image that it's a book about three clowns trying to rob a whoopee cushion factory while carrying a ladder they're inexplicably bad at carrying. You know what I mean? It just gives that image that it's not really. And the whole point is minor. There's a genuinely serious story in most of them, but there is just comedic elements to it. And I think they can actually, if you do it right, they contrast quite well. So yeah, I was doing them. And then basically I kind of got an agent, so if they started taking off, and initially I was genuinely supposed to be writing a quote unquote serious crime book, because I had quite a few agents interested at the time and all that sort of stuff. And I had all these ideas again up on my board in my then office, my writing office in Manchester. And I got up one morning. I remembered literally a script I'd written for a sitcom that had gone nowhere called The Strange Times, if I remember rightly. And I literally remembered it when I was supposed to be doing one of these serious crime books. It was set in this newspaper, and it was all about reporting weird news from around the world. And then I had this, I was literally got in the shower and I was thinking about it going, I always liked that. What did I ever do with that? I always, because my agent at the time just didn't get it. And then I thought, well, they'd have to realize that there is actually magic. It would actually have to, that's how you'd have to write that. And then I started walking from my office in the center of Manchester to my writing office. And I was going, oh my God, it should be in Manchester. And then literally by the end of that walk, I was running up the stairs to get into my office because I had so many ideas I wanted to write down. To the point where literally their office is in an old church in Manchester, and it's based on a church I walked by on the way to my office. Like, it was literally that morning where everything was just flying into my head, and I was like, and by the time I got there, then I remember like going back to all these agents who were asking me questions and interested in representing me, going, I'm not going to write a serious crime thriller. I'm writing a fantasy book set in Manchester. And my agent Ed is the one who, because my agent Ed now I get on great with, he was the one who came back and said, brilliant, that sounds fantastic. It sounds like the 14 Times. And I went, bingo, you're my man.
Yeah.
But awesome. Yes. And then there's, as I said, I've kind of really enjoyed that. And weirdly, the thing I do with it, which is quite unusual, is there's a podcast series called The Stranger Times as well. And basically what I did was, when 2020 happened with lockdown, my first book was coming out, and we all had a bit more free time than we expected to. And I started writing short stories based in the world of the Stranger Times, and then got loads of mates of mine from the comedy circuit to narrate them.
Oh wow!
And yeah, and that's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed doing those because it's a great. Because the thing with like fantasy and sci-fi in general, all that kind of area, lends itself brilliantly to short stories as a genre, whereas crime short stories are very hard to write. Because if you think about how crime books or any crime drama works, you need to have the thing happen, then you need to have all these twists and turns, and it just doesn't suit. Yeah, so almost every crime short story, there's a few brilliant ones. Like Don Winslow is an amazing writer. He did a couple of amazing. Don Winslow's so good. He did a series. He did a book of short stories, and he wrote them in the style of other authors.
Right.
Which is an amazingly, frankly, arrogant thing to do for almost anyone except Don Winslow, who can do that because he's brilliant. And he has that series had my all-time favorite opening line of anything I've ever read, which was, if I remember rightly, nobody even knew how the orangutan got hold of the gun, which is an incredible opening line because you're immediately going, what? And it's but Don Winslow's a genius. So yeah, but yeah, fantasy thing then, and it's sort of, I really like, people always ask me about, which side do you prefer doing? And the great thing with them is I think I really like doing the crime books, the bunny books and stuff, and I really enjoy doing the Stranger Times. And having both of them is brilliant because you do one and then your brain's mad keen to the other one by the time you get to it. So you're always, it's fresh, because I'd always worried about if I was writing a series, oh God, I'd hate to be the person going, oh God, I've got another one of these to crank out.
Yes, George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, well, he does, but it's more like there's some of them where you go and like there's 30 with the same detective, and you do wonder if people get sick of writing them. And I know some people have, quite famously, and like ghostwriters write them and stuff for them now, which I hate as an idea. But I've been quite lucky because I do so many different things. It keeps it fresh.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, it's funny when you were saying about like comedy and sort of thriller and things like contrasting quite well. It's sort of like I agree with you. Like one of my favorite movies, horror films, is Dog Soldiers, and it's it's sort of it's comedy, but it's also horror. But the fact that they're two completely opposite sort of emotional states, I think it adds to the whole thing, and they do it quite subtly. In a way, it is comical, but it doesn't take the edge off the horror itself, and I think that makes a really good film. And again, you could see that in books as well, as long as you don't overdo it. Like a prime example of a film that takes the edge off the sort of kind of serious is like Thor Love and Thunder, and it had the potential to be a really dark, sort of have some really dark edge to it, especially with the whole gore thing, but they like the slapstick, the comedy that literally just was all over it, and it just took away from everything else. You have to have a fine balance.
I think there was one moment in it that I think summed up where it went wrong, where basically in Love and Thunder, if you remember, the children all get kidnapped. And literally 90 seconds later, Thor is behaving like a teenager because his ex-girlfriend has shown up. And you're like, the children have been kidnapped. What are you doing? Going all get batty-eyed about like this. It just didn't make it. It was very interesting. It just didn't. And the thing with that was, that's why I always say about when comedy's done badly, about if you don't respect the story. If it doesn't feel like there's any stakes, then if you're just playing for jokes, and it just pulls the audience out. Yeah, and and it's a shame because like the first one he did was amazing.
Yeah. I think that was it. I think Taika Waititi had a good formula, but I think what worked with him is because that was unexpected. You had this massive, grandiose story of Ragnarok, and it was like, yeah, we know that pretty much, it's all going to get destroyed, but let's have a bit of a laugh. But then when you look at the themes for Love and Thunder, one of the big storylines, they do the Mighty Thor storyline, which is Jane Foster gets the powers of Thor, but every time she acquires the powers, it pretty much kills the chemotherapy that's been going through her body because she is going through cancer treatments. And, it's a bit hard. And lucky enough, I'm glad there wasn't really any cancer jokes, because there was one point in the film I thought, how low is it really going to go? Where are they going to, where's going to be the line? And, I don't think it's a great film, and it's sad to say, it probably is the worst of all the 4 movies. But
I don't know about that. The second one I've never managed to watch again because it's
but do you know what? I have a new respect for the second one ever since Endgame, because Endgame sort of brings it back a little bit. It makes you remember why it was important.
Yeah.
But no, I think Love and Thunder, it's got some good points. The Guardians of the Galaxy bit at the beginning, I really thought was fun. I mean, Christian Bale is not a bad choice of villain, but they just
didn't use him enough. They didn't.
No, that was it.
Yeah, it was like,
and it was like he was the God Butcher. He kills one god. You know, but that's not exactly the title. I mean, like, you know, I've swatted 3 or 4 flies in the last week, but I don't know myself as the fly swatter. You know.
But it's like,
I mean, it's a cool name. You should consider maybe get some merch.
The fly
swatter. The fly swatter. But it's like Caimh said. It's playing for jokes.
Yeah, but you remember the goats thing with the screaming? I remember halfway through it going, "Oh Jesus, that's annoying."
I mean, it was funny the first time, but then it just kept going. And the only thing I think was funny with the goats is when, what was it? One of them goes, "Oh, we could kill him." They just go, "Huh?"
Yeah,
I kind of liked his relationship with his hammer. The whole sort of like, you know.
I mean, that's good.
That was quite amusing.
Good.
But
Silly
it was just
things like that.
It was just. But the thing is, it's like I said, it was Taika Waititi parodying himself and just trying to sort of replicate something and just kind of overdoing it, and it just took away from the whole thing. What could have been a really good sort of balanced, edgy, partially comical film was just
or the ice cream shop called the Infinity Cones. That was that was a little bit like yes, you know, remember that guy who wiped out half of the human race and, you know, just and every other bit of life in the universe? We're doing him in an ice cream shop.
Yeah, it's pretty. What do you think about it? It would be like it would be like having an ice cream named after Auschwitz or something like that. You know, it's like it's the same. They kill like a load of people. I was like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to name an ice cream after that because, you know, why not? For the lols, you know.
What was the thing last week where one of the demented Tories that we have so many of still, bless them.
I was going to say, you might have to whittle it down a little bit.
It's what's her name, Esther McThingy, who compared a smoking ban to the Holocaust and then refused to apologize.
Yeah.
And she went, if anyone said, like, clearly they would understand. I was like, you read her thing where she was like if the Jewish counselor saying this is appalling and you're doubling down, love, just stop.
Yeah.
Even like by the lofty standards of the Tory party, going, oh my God, you must realize that's not right.
I think they're just trying to out reform. I think they're going around saying, right, these guys are stealing our seats. We need to be as bombastic and ridiculous and as racist and outlandish as we can be, you know, just to sort of get some of these gammons back into the fold.
Yeah. Seem to be, yeah.
Can you imagine that? They all just get handed a bit of paper as they go into Parliament. Be more racist. Okay.
Maybe it's like they're handing around different ideas. Right. I want you to use the word. What was the one that didn't Boris Johnson use? Gigabit or some kind of horrific. Yeah. It was like so racist it wasn't even in use anymore. That's like it was so.
He's done a lot of them. He's done so many of these things. Yeah. There was the one. Oh, what was it? There was was it when he compared like a woman in a burqa to a letterbox or so? It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, mate? Why would? But then this is the guy who then got elected to be mayor of London, then became prime minister, then won an election as prime minister. There's just something.
This is not a political podcast, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. But every now and again, you had to strim into sort of when you got to call a spade a spade. And that
was my fault. That's an unfortunate turn of phrase in this, given the context of this.
What did we say we were going to call it before? Because I'm sure we came up with like a mock name if we were going to do a political podcast. I can't remember that. I
can't remember what it was and stuff. But yeah, it's
in the heat of the moment. I came up with. I thought was quite a good name. I honestly cannot remember it now. As usual, most things come. I was like, should write this stuff down.
Okay, but so Would you like? So we've had a fair few writers on, and we sort of generally ask, or Pete generally asks them the same sort of question. You're about sort of writing technique. Are you what they call a pantser? If I've got that right, are you a pantser, or do you methodically work through things?
It's pantser or planner. That's the
pantser or planner. That's it.
Yeah. I'm more planner than pantser. But I am kind of like, I don't have everything when I'm doing it out. As I said, I use the board a lot of the time and I put things up. It depends what book I'm writing, because like the Stranger Times books tend to be very complicated. If anyone's read them, there's usually like 3 storylines weaving through them. So some of the Bunny books would be a bit more straightforward, but those would need, like Stranger Times books need a good bit more planning, because there's. So what I generally sort of have is I have a rough idea. It's kind of, I have like, if you're doing a jigsaw, I get the corners together, and I kind of know what the first 5 or 6 chapters are going to be. And then I generally start writing. And usually what happens is, while I'm writing chapter 1, my brain is going ahead and it's figured out what chapter 7 will be and stuff. So it's kind of like I'm laying the road in front of myself, you know what I mean? So I never get to the point where I stop. Almost never do I get to the point where I stop and go, oh, I need to figure something out with this now. It's usually I'm working ahead. Did happen on the last book, Relight My Fire, which is my zombie book, effectively. And genuinely, for the first time ever, I wrote myself into a corner where somebody, without giving too much away, someone was trying to bring somebody back who'd been like 15 years dead. And I had this problem where I went, their brain would be gone, like it would have disintegrated by then, you know, because all that stuff. And I literally went, this doesn't work. And this was quite far into the book. I'm going, how would he do that then? And genuinely, I sort of stopped for the first time ever, like for 2 days. And eventually I started looking at cryogenics, and hilariously, not only did that get me out of the thing, it made the book far better.
All right.
Because of that, then, like, basically the zombies in that book, without again giving too much away, are all famous people from the past who've been brought back. So there's like zombie Margaret Thatcher and stuff. And that just made the book so much better. But that was literally, I wrote myself in a corner and had to get out of it. I ended up working out great. But generally I don't do that. So I'm probably more on the planning side of things.
Have you ever read any of the books? They're called Ex-Heroes. The writer is, off the top of my head, it is, what's his name? God, it's going wrong. You idiot. Ex-Heroes. Oh yeah, Peter Klein's. There he is. Yeah, Peter Klein's. It's basically a series of books about superheroes in a zombie apocalypse in Hollywood, and it's really good. Like, you'd think,
I think I've read something else by him, because that name rings a bell. Yeah, but I haven't read that series.
He has done what is other books? Like, I've only read his Ex-Heroes stuff, or at least the audiobook versions of it. But he's done a fair few. My boss is a massive fan. What's he got? Books. He's got Robinson Crusoe, Dead Men Can't Complain, Terminus, Dead Moon, The Fold.
I'm sure I've read something by him, but
yeah, but the Ex-Heroes stuff is really, there's like 5 books, and you'd think it would get stale really quickly because it's about superheroes and stuff, but like that. But it's really good, and it's like it's just their interactions with the zombies, and some of the zombies being able to, like, some of the superheroes being able to command zombies and stuff like that, and it just works really well. Cool. It's really good set of books.
I must check it, because to be honest, I've never weirdly, I was saying about Gary, because myself and Gary used to live together for years, like, and he's an obsessive with zombies, like to the point where he has a zombie room in his house, because his wife just went, we're not having this shit all around the house, so there's one room in his house that's full of the zombie stuff. But how Relight My Fire came about was, I was trying to write a different Stranger Times book. I was actually doing the pitch document to tell the publishers what was going to be in it, and I was trying to find, because they're all outside of the Stranger Times. It's This Charming Man, Relight My Fire, and Love Will Tear Us Apart, which are all obviously famous Mancunian, loosely Mancunian songs. Though I have several people tell me it's such and such a band is actually from just outside Manchester. You're like, okay, no one cares. But Relight My Fire, I was literally looking for a name for another idea, and I ran out of all the cool Manchester rock bands, and then I started looking to take that out of desperation. And I texted Gary and said, "Is it my imagination or is Relight My Fire a really funny title for a zombie book?" And he came back and went, "That and Back for Good." And by which point, after like literally 20 minutes after coming up, like the name, I come up with how a zombie book would work, which isn't how you're supposed to write books. I genuinely, it's my favorite of the series, but I honest to God wrote it just because I came up with the name.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A bit like when Samuel Jackson signed up for Snakes on a Plane, because he was like, "No, I like the title, that'll do. Do you want to read the script?" "Nah, we'll be fine."
Well, that was they reshot some of that, so he would say there's too many motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
What was funny about that? Because I remember when they were making it, because they said, "Oh, Snakes on a Plane, that's the title we think we're going for." And then during production, they said, "Oh, we're going to call it whatever." I think it was like it was going to be named after the plane that they were actually on. And he said, "Look, if you change the title, I'm out of here." And they went, "All right, we'll keep it Snakes on a Plane." Yeah, that's fine. But you think, considering that was like one of the first real like films that was fueled by online motion, so there was a lot of talk about it. It didn't actually do that well. I was expecting it was going to be like a massive hit, but it sort of, I think it barely made double its budget, and even then that was only about $30 million anyway.
Yeah, but without that, it would have been a flop because it wasn't a good film. It was just, but what made it was the memes where everyone had his character saying about the snakes. Like that's literally, it took off, and they ended up sort of. But yeah, the reality was, I went to see it, and after 15 minutes ago, and this is exactly what I thought it would be.
I love a film like that, though. I love a film if it is just
so
like,
bad.
it's just what it's going to be. It's going to be something silly. It's good. That's why I like the films of Tommy Wiseau. If anyone has ever seen a Tommy Wiseau film. I thought
there was only one. I thought there was
no.
Only one.
He has. He's made a few different projects, but he's obviously The Room. Oh, come on, Keith. You must have heard of The Room. That is.
I've heard the name, but I don't.
Oh man, you should watch it.
It's unbelievable.
It's so bad. It's compelling. It's like, but it's got to the point where there's a film about the film, and it's so bad that he didn't like the acting. He went and he redubbed stuff. He redubbed everything on it with him. And he goes into his shop and he's like, "How are you doing? You're my best customer." Bye.
Oh, do you know what? I could recite so much of that film. It's unbelievable. And like, there's one point, apparently it took 50 odd takes. He comes out onto a rooftop. He goes, "I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. And just because I need it for the ball, because he does it, I did not." Oh, hi, Mark.
That's right. Oh, hi, Mark.
and this, I'll tell you what, you think, oh, clearly he must have been nervous. No, that was like the 50th take of that. It took him to, but he done, and this is the thing, because last year, because I really do enjoy his work, and I think he's a brilliant guy. I've met him a few times. He brought out a new film called Big Shark, and it is just... seriously, it is probably one of the worst played films ever.
Big shark, big shark, big shark, big shark.
But the thing is, as well, is like the audience, when you go see him in the cinema, the audience all get behind it. They'll have a good laugh. So it's about 3 firefighters in New Orleans, and then all of a sudden there's this big tidal wave that comes in. Everywhere's getting flooded. There's this big shark that's just like swimming around the streets, and then. And then there's even like there's a great song that they sing to encourage them, like, to fight this shark, and then it's just incredible. But the guy himself, he's apparently originally from like Eastern Europe. He believes himself to be American, though.
Yeah, refuses to say he's not American. He always says he's American.
But it's just incredible. But like I say, if you ever see his stuff, it is just incredible. And trust me, you're not in for a good film necessarily, but you're in for an experience you'll never forget. And The Room, for me, is still that film. That film is just untouchable. But this other one, Big Shark, it is just as crazy. It's as silly. And if you thought, like The Room was a bit off, the editing is probably the funniest thing in Big Shark, because it's there's one scene near the beginning, like they're in an auditorium or something. You got everyone going, yeah, and then also it goes to the next shot, it's supposed to be still the same scene. Also, it's like, yeah, like just goes dead quiet. It's like, and the laughter that.
To be fair, I've had gigs like that. To be fair,
do you know what? And funny enough, he's just been at the Prince Charles Cinema in London. I think he goes there like once or twice a year, but he does like the shows sell out. And one of the big things with the room, especially if you've got it in the cinema, everyone takes in plastic spoons. And because there's this bit where when he was making the movie, he wanted picture frames to be in one of the sets, but he didn't allow them to take the stock photos out of it, and all the stock photos in these picture frames were of spoons. So yeah, so every time they're on there, you see there's like just hundreds of plastic spoons being hurled up at the screen. It is incredible.
Sounds amazing, to be fair.
But
you know what it weirdly reminds me of? There was I won't say the guy's name. There was a guy, I don't even know how one of the lads, one of the Manchester comics got obsessed with this guy. He was a young guy who was trying to be an actor, and he was doing his own tapes. And he did the room thing reminds me, where he did this thing where he was trapped in this big white room, and it was like him like for 5 minutes just going and looking horrified and all this. And all he did, and he made, honestly, it was so stupidly funny. All this guy, the comic, did was he just superimposed a door behind him that he couldn't see. And he was just like, and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Just a combination of dead earnestness and just go, and then it's just behind you.
It's apologies to sort of bring the level down slightly, but unfortunately, it seems like James Earl Jones has passed away.
Oh shit!
Oh shit! The bit. Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh man, you had to drop that bomb there.
I know. I was going to go in for a bit more comment, and Josh has just put a thing on saying that. And hello, Reese. By the way, sorry I missed your comment. But Josh has just said James Earl Jones has passed away.
How old? He must have been
93. 93, man. Yeah. So
good. Yeah, nice.
If anyone saw the and Joe, this is because I know this shit just like that. If anyone saw the Obi-Wan TV series from a couple of years ago, James Earl Jones, he didn't actually because Darth Vader's in the show and they use a lot of Darth Vader's James Earl Jones' voice, but a lot of it was actually recreated with AI. So he was one of the first actors to actually sign over his voice for any future projects. So I believe the idea was Hayden Christensen voiced the character. He then went to go and do the dubbing afterwards. So he re-recorded all the lines, and then with AI they then took the modulations of James Earl Jones's voice, I think it was from episode 5 and episode 6, and then with that they've been able to create this whole soundboard so they can recreate like Darth Vader. And it's quite good because I think when I first heard it, because I remember when James Earl Jones done the voice of Darth Vader for Rogue One, and I did think, like, you know, you could definitely tell the voice is there, but it doesn't have the same power as it did back in the 70s and 80s. And when I was listening to this, I thought this sounds so much like he's gone back 30, 40 years, and that's because it was the AI technology. It was that was making his voice.
Bit of a double-edged sword, the way AI stuff. Like it's mad. Like
of course it is.
It's crazy where it's come. Like I remember having text-to-speech stuff on my Atari ST and being wowed by the fact you could say swear words with your computer by typing them in a weird way, so it would say them and stuff. But now, like I'm editing a video for the website, and I've used like I've typed in stuff for basically what is like a Grand Meister from Game of Thrones to say over the top of it, and it sounds just like a human being. Like the only way you would know it wasn't somebody is sometimes the intonation's slightly off, or like I've spelt something wrong and it's pronounced it just as it is and stuff. But it's like it's really freaky how like you can like they've taken somebody's voice and they've given you this whole thing, and it's crazy. It's mad.
I'll tell you what though, that's I don't know if either of you have ever noticed it, but on Spotify they have it's like a DJ thing. So you press it and it's supposed to create like little playlists of songs that you've played
Oh,
before, and it's the voice that comes up. He sounds a little bit like Ice-T. He goes, "Hey, this is your DJX. We're going to get you running some music you've been listening to for a long time." And it's like, but it's like sometimes like some of the bands it just can't say properly. So yes, we know you like stereoponics. Stereophonics, stereoponics. No, that's not how it's pronounced. And then like you get some more complicated names, and it's like,
yeah. Well, if you want to get
really,
if you want to get AI to say things properly, you've got to spell it phonetically, or it doesn't sort of it pronounces every syllable and then it gets it wrong. So you just got to sort of take that into account. But
well, I'm always asking Alexa who I am, and it never gets it. How
the fuck with Alexa?
myself
I give up.
Yeah. Well, we had one. Yeah. But we had one in the bedroom at one point. We don't anymore, but we had one back in our old flat. And I remember, like, we weren't getting out of bed on a Sunday morning too. It was just lying there, and you were like, we just quite knew. And then we did that everyone does, was just ask Alexa random questions, and you're just sort of asking it random questions. So like, who is this person? Who is that person? You know, and who's this? Who's that? And what's the other? And I always remember my missus, who's black, just asked it a random question, and then Alexa went, "You want rap music?" and then play.
Whoa!
The most racist thing I have ever seen, and it was genuinely out of nowhere. And it wasn't even asking about music, and it just started playing rap music at her. Oh, hate crime.
Joe, I very much worry for the day that if on an Alexa or something you ask it something, it goes, "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that." Yeah. I'm waiting for that day. That I'm sure, especially you see all this rise of AI, you see how much we rely on technology now. I feel like that's just any day now.
Sorry, carry on, please.
I was going to say, there's certain things it can do, and there's certain things I don't think it can. Like, because I put a note in the start of my last book about how there was no AI, because it's this thing people have said you should put it in saying whether it's been used in writing a book. And I remember, I think Charlie, and I did that, and it was because it was basically fundamentally it was a funny thing that went quite viral, which is, I'll be honest, not entirely surprising. I may have realized that was probably going to happen, though it was quite funny seeing how many of the AI bros I pissed off. And you're kind of going, I'm guessing these guys aren't reading books anyway, so it's fine. But yeah, I there is weird things with AI where the like voice, like audio books read by AI. Amazon are now trying to push that and stuff as a thing, and it's something there. But the thing is, if you're a fan of audiobooks, like, I think, frankly, a non-fiction book you can probably get AI to do well, but AI, like, we have really good narrators for both series in my books, like really strong narrators. Both of them are great. Brendan does the Stranger Times, and Morgan C. Jones does the Bunny books. And the thing is, they are great actors who can actually give it life in a way that you can't get an AI to do, unless I was to sit there and try and direct every sentence of it. But especially when it comes to comedy, because you know yourself, like, it's the emphasis on what word makes the thing and the thing that it just can't be taught. And frankly, I don't want it to be. I prefer having the actors, so I'm always going to have them. But Charlie Brooker did a great thing where he was freaking out because he's like Black Mirror and all that.
Yeah.
And he was like, AI is going to wipe us out as authors. And he said, writers. And he said he went through like a week of that. And he's first time he did it. And then he realized when he kept giving it things to do, that what it just did was a pastiche of what already existed.
Yeah.
So it's not actually creating something. What it's doing is
regurgitating.
Exactly, yeah. It's effectively sort of doing something that looks like a script, but if you actually come down to, now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they'll use that for certain things, because frankly, a lot of Hollywood movies are that. But I still think people want to know that what they're reading and stuff is written by a real person.
Thing is, though, there is a difference. Like, so I don't get me wrong, we use AI and work and stuff like that for like admin type stuff, doing sort of data mining and taking things from documents and stuff like that, which is great. I use AI in to help me with my D&D games and stuff like that. And it makes things a lot easier because I can sort of get an idea quickly and then sort of bounce off that. But you'll never get something that it will never be able to create. Like, I've asked it to write some history for, Freya, which is the land that my D&D group are in. And it's bad. It's like, it's not like, it's good, I think, at giving you an idea of where to start or where to go. But it's not good at creating something, impassioned or, with depth and feeling and stuff like that. And so I think I think we're good for a while, because like from my experience
Yeah.
with it, it just seems to be a bit sort of like off. And like you said, it does weird things, like they banned it in a lot of solicitors firms, because it was like, I think, and that we had a thing come around in our work where they basically said you're not allowed to use open source GPT in your work, because what had happened is somebody, a paralegal or somebody, had asked for some case law on something to do this, and it couldn't find it, so it made up its own, and it basically it got one bit of case law and another bit of case law and jammed it together and made it its own, but it did it in a kind of seamless way where the sort of the paralegal didn't know any different and let it go to court and stuff on this, and they're like, what the hell is that? That's not a piece of case law and stuff. And that from that point on, they were pretty much like, yeah, you're not allowed to use that anymore. You're not allowed to do that.
And to be clear, I'm not anti-AI and stuff. I just think I remember like the tweet that summed it up greatly for me was somebody went, I don't like, why would I bother reading a book that somebody hasn't bothered to write? Which I think is a very good point. If you got AI to do it, then why should I? Because that's the thing, like when you're any kind of entertainment these days, I always think when I'm writing this, why I always try and make sure that things moving along and keep people going. Because like, I'm not, I don't think I'm ever competing against other authors. I think that's not how this works. I think what you're competing against is the internet and Netflix and all YouTube, and you want to keep people's attention. And I always think it's a weird thing that people always think about. Like, I've never thought I was competing against any other author, for the simple reason was if you read a book and you really enjoy it, what's the next thing you do? You go and get another fucking book. Whether it's by the same author, by somebody different. Like, reading a bad book makes you less likely to read. So that's always, as long as the books are good, I think it's great. And but I don't think AI. And as I said, I don't want to read a book that AI wrote because I won't have a human.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this, but it was only from a few months ago. There was a lot of backlash about a film that was coming out that was all written through Chat GPT. It was called The Last Screenwriter.
Yes.
So it was a AI generated script. So the guy that was making the film put in, I think it was like 17 or 20 words, something like that, and he just said, "I'll just write a script of it." And what they done is they filmed the script exactly how they put it out, and I don't know if it's actually had any release yet, because the original screening had such a lot of backlash that Prince Charles Cinema actually just pulled it. They said, no, we're not showing this now because we don't think it's the right time, or we don't think this is the right audience. But yeah, there's some little snippets that have come out here and there on the internet, and it's really rigid. There's a lot of lines that just feel very stilted. They feel very repetitive. There's don't get me wrong, I mean, it's a fascinating idea, and I think one thing it does show is that where people are saying, potential AI could do this and that, and don't get me wrong, I think there are going to be places where it's going to be stronger than others. It's not going to replace people when it comes to writing in particular. You're not, because
I think the only time you'd ever get AI taking stuff away from humans like that is when it can beat the Turing test, when it can basically be indifferential from human beings. But you just don't get the it's the same with art as well. My sister's an artist, and I just don't think, like, I use AI art for my games and stuff like that, but it's just like fingers are in weird places. Like, we had one.
It does seem to weirdly not be able to do fingers of all things.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, we did like I was doing like these dream sequences. So I was like, all right, so I need to get some, like, something I put on screen to talk about, and it was basically one of, and it's like, it was a good picture of like a halfling sitting on a chair drinking a beer with another halfling. But then, and I didn't notice until one of the guys pointed out and said, dude, that guy's finger is halfway down the bar. So he basically had too many fingers on the cup, and then there was a random finger just there on the bar. I was like, what the hell? Where's that come from?
Weird. It is weird that seems to be the thing they particularly can't do. Yeah. It's like, what's the famous Marvel author who could, or Marvel artist who couldn't do feet?
Oh, Rob Liefeld, yeah.
Yeah.
But they actually reference that in the Deadpool Wolverine film as well.
Which is great.
And I've got to finish out.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm a massive fan because I love the Deadpool films. And I don't know if there's going to be another one, because I think.
The thing is, they made a lot of money out of this, but I've got to think they paid a lot of money for all the promotion as well, because they
really went deep.
All around the world.
Yeah.
And they done so much. They were on almost every YouTube channel. They were on every news broadcast. They were doing even just over here. They were doing all the blood drives. They were doing the animal charities. They were on everything. So
but I'd imagine the reason they were was the two of them were getting points that they probably had a deal that was right up there with the Downey Iron Man deal, in the sense that because Deadpool is so linked to that actor that I think he was quite clearly, and he's written it and everything, so I think he was quite clearly on a ton of money on the back end.
But I bet they knew
it was going to be big.
I bet they wish they were getting Downey's money now for what he's getting for Doctor Doom.
Wow, that was a big shock. But I'll be looking forward to it. But yeah, I think Deadpool they'll do Secret Wars, and they'll do what's the Doom one going to be called?
Doomsday.
Doomsday.
Yeah. Doomsday, I think. Yeah.
So I think they'll have
because
he'll be in other films, but like Deadpool will be in other films, but. I think the reason was because I love all three of the films. I've watched them obsessively. I love them to bits.
Yeah.
But I can remember thinking of the third one going, I think you've gone as far as you can go.
Yeah.
And I think if you, you'd rather leave it. And I think they've done a great job of I liked all. I know some people criticize various bits of the film. I liked all three of them. I loved all three of them. I mean, I thought they were great. And I think the problem they have is that things like them and The Boys are kind of making all the other superhero things look a bit tame and dull now.
Oh yeah, The Boys,
which is the big problem Marvel have. Yeah.
And because they've hit that peak now, you just go, where do you go next? That's it.
You don't want them to carry on and sort of sully the sort of what they had previously, because one bad movie can sort of really destroy it. Can destroy a franchise and stuff, so you kind of want them to go out on a high, and that's I think was the worry. That was the worry about obviously with Hugh Jackman and Logan. Logan was a masterpiece. Logan was absolutely phenomenal. Such a good film, and then for him to come back, you could tell a lot of people were worrying that it was going to ruin it. I think the way they did it, where they literally just pissed all over it at the very start, got it out of the way, and then moved on with it, was amazing. I thought they did that so well.
The opening scene where he's digging up the grave is an incredible way of dealing with that.
How are we going to do this in a sensitive way? Short answer: we're not.
I always think that the amazing thing with that, which is why it's so well written, is that they can break the fourth wall. As I remember saying about the was it Blood and Thunder or whatever it was, the Thor film, where it felt like there was no stakes. Weirdly, in Deadpool, they managed to make it still feel like there are stakes, despite the fact they've done stuff like break the fourth wall and all that, which should really wipe out any idea of that.
And
he's literally referring to the studio and all. It's amazing.
But the thing is, again, with Deadpool, you always get that sort of there is the edge to it where there's very sort of poignant moments in it. You will have this out and out outrageous batshit crazy comedy going on, and then you have these really poignant moments, and they sort of meld them together really well. So you've got all the comedy, but it's with Hugh Jackman, Wolverine moments, you got some really good moments in the new film, and it sort of gave you what you needed, and it was a good balance. That was a good example of a good balance of comedy and a more serious film. And
considering superhero films, probably one of the best use of cameos as well. Really,
oh man, seriously, I was like a child in a candy store. It was just, it was mad. I was like, oh my god, that's that person. Oh my god, that's that person. I didn't get, and obviously, spoiler words. Anybody's not seen it, you should have, but you haven't seen it. Spoilers. Gambit in it and stuff. I didn't get, because I had this vague sort of memory of there potentially being a Gambit movie, and then when I saw Channing Tatum in it, my mate explained, he's like, yeah, well, the way he's talking is because it never happened. So when he's talking about, he doesn't know and all this stuff, it's because he never had his world and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. And I love the fact that, it was all about giving the Fox franchise an ending. Effectively, it was basically ending their moments and stuff, and that was good.
He had the best lines though. He just had such great lines. He goes, "I didn't know my daddy. I certainly know I came out of his dick ready." It's like, it's just like things like that. He's just got such great lines. They call me the Gambits. Did they? Or did you just really want to and it never panned out? It's like, but he plays that so well. He does have such a good laugh with it, and
I think it's a great character, but I don't think it would carry a film. I think
I don't think. I think if he had the film, I think it would have toned it down a hell of a lot. But I think it's because he knew this was his one chance with it, and he was like, "Joe, fuck it, I'll have fun. I'm gonna make this part brilliant," and he does. He really does own it. He goes, "Yeah, what's your power?" "Oh, I made the cards go boom." "Oh, so you're like a superhero version of Hawkeye?" "Okay."
Yeah, and the Chris Evans bit was genius.
Oh
as well.
man!
Oh my god! Yes,
so good. He's gonna do it. And then it's like, and it's like flame on, and you're just like, oh, I did not see that coming. Yeah. Fucking hell, yeah. So good, man. Yeah. I was so impressed.
And probably, and it goes with part of my my couple of like news bits as well. The line from Wesley Snipes just as they're going to the compound, he goes, yes. There's only ever been one blade. There's only ever going to be one blade. And they're like, Deadpool's like,
Was the Deadpool director one of the many that've been attached to that at one point? Because it's been attached to like a lot of people now. The Blade reboot.
Oh right. Yeah, well, that's the other thing as well. I've got something about the Blade film actually.
Well, we'll do that at the end. Then we'll carry on. We'll carry on because we can go off. I can feel this podcast going up for hours and hours and hours, and everybody needs to get to bed. I think so. So
the caffeine's kicked in there. I'm good.
We'll do it for a bit. I've already get messages from my missus who's saying there's spiders and she's scared and stuff. So
that's one way to say, just get off the fucking podcast. Come on.
But final. There's one thing I want to say about books. When you were talking about having great actors as audio for your audiobooks, like like I've got so many books who we've had authors on. I'm trying to think.
You had Benneranovich and all. Yeah.
We had, and Gareth Powell, and his books, and he was like, and I was like, these sound amazing. So, because I'm a big fan of Audible and stuff, and it means I can walk and listen, walk my dog, having them in the car and stuff. So I've got this like Audible library, so I just do audiobooks, and I feel bad because I always give his book as an example because he's got lots of the first book I listened to his as an example, but whoever did the acting in that was absolutely atrocious. It was so sort of like it just killed it for me. I just couldn't listen to it anymore. I said like I'm just going to have to actually read this book because I want to read it. I just can't deal with the way it's being acted. It was just poor, and like there's been a few others where I'm trying to think of the name. Can't think of the name, but basically there was another one, and it was just like the books, in concept really good, but the acting was just so flat, and it just sort of killed it for me. I was just like, oh man, I'm gonna have to read that book now as well.
I mean, it can be if they get like, ironically enough, sometimes when they get big name actors, that's when it can, because they don't know how to do it. It's a real skill set to do audio. So you get like people who are stage actors or film actors and stuff. It's a very different thing. And you do need to be it's like the guys I've got doing mine are both great, and they're both voiceover guys. Which is hilarious. When I used to ring my mum's home phone number, it was my narrator Brendan would tell me that her mailbox was full. He'd done the ones for Aircom in Ireland, but it is like I've had the same. Where I think recently I downloaded a fantasy one. It's a big fantasy one, and it was I think it was happened to be a female narrator on that one. but she was American and she was doing the thing where she was inflecting at the end of sentences like it was a question.
I hate it. So
I only got
much.
2 minutes in and I had to stop because it was like, oh, this is just, I'm gonna have to read this book.
Yeah.
So it is one of these things that it's either, you know, death or glory with narrators. But like the guy who does Ben's books is really good. Cobna, I think he's actually done stage and film. He's very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a few people but I know like one of my favorite authors, I won't say who, but one of my favorite authors, I was listening to one of his books and had a Geordie accent in it. And it was so bad, I could not. And it was what was more annoying was that was a fairly minor character that came in over halfway through the book, and I still had to stop because it was just like nails down the chalkboard, horrendous. So they are. I mean, it's a massive deal. I think getting good narrators. Like they've done, they've redone all the Terry Pratchett books, the Discworld, with pretty famous names, but they've actually done a good job in getting great people to do it. The only downside is anyone's a fan of Terry Pratchett, Stephen Briggs, who was the narrator for a lot of them. Yeah. I didn't realize this, and I was pissed off when I heard this, frankly, that they've removed the old versions. Like if you bought the old version on Audible, if you owned the Stephen Briggs version of Terry Pratchett's book, that's now disappeared apparently from your thing. They've now withdrawn it. And you're like, but I paid for that. And you're like, how? That shouldn't be how it works. I was amazed when I found out that apparently the old version was gone. Because I actually met Stephen Briggs the first time down at Discworld, and that was weird, by the way. Somebody you'd listened to for 20 years on audiobooks, and then he starts talking to you, and you're like, "This is the voice from my car," and you're like, "Look at the human being going, this is so weird. This is like Alexa turning up your front door, and it's a woman going, "Hello, would you like to know the weather?" It's like, "Fuck it out." But yeah, there you go.
There's a I'm not sure if is he. I think he's Irish. A guy called Tim Gerard Reynolds. He's a narrator.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you ever read any of the Red Rising or listened to any of the Red Rising books?
Yes, I listened to him doing it. I was actually on the list for, I think, the first time we ended up with Morgan, but we actually had him because we were looking for an Irish narrator. Yeah. And he's very good. Yeah, he's really good at that kind of but again, he's a certain genre he does, and he's really good at that kind of. Oh yeah,
like genre, right? The thing is, like when I started listening, like again, my boss is really into it, and he's like, you need to listen to this, and it's basically like, if you've read them, the Martians are effectively the space Irish. If you've ever seen that episode, if you've ever seen that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where they literally have space Irish people, which is quite amusing. But they're basically. It says in one of the books that Mars is basically the Irish went there, colonized and became miners, blah blah blah. But
I didn't know that. I knew because I heard the books. I didn't realize that was actually deliberately. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they're Irish. Yeah, so they're so all the different, like, it's really good. The different, like, as a series, it's phenomenal. Like it's amazing. Like, so good. It's like book 7, I think. Lightbringer was the last one that's just come out recently. And Tim Gerard Reynolds does the audio books for them, and like he is Darrow, he is the main character. Like, if you hear somebody else, and it started off really well for the first 3. He did it for all of them. Like, he does all the voices and stuff like that, and then they brought in other people, and you're like, I don't like it when other people are doing it.
Oh, really? They brought in a different, like, he did the whole first 3 books, and then they made
so
them.
So basically, they did first 3. So, and it's weird because the first one he does it in a very biggity bong sort of like ticky-tacky Irish sort of, like proper yokel Irish accent, and it's like, I don't know if I can deal with this. This is really putting me off. But then it's to show the difference between him being a miner whose wife's just been killed, and then him evolving into a gold and becoming something. So his biggity bong Irish sort of accent changes as he evolves into this thing, and it's so well done because you're not thinking, just like, I don't like this accent, and then suddenly it changes into a more sort of like, it's still Irish, but it's a more refined sort of kind of Irish because he's become this sort of like superhuman, refined South Dublin.
I'd imagine it's South Dublin.
Yeah, and it's really good, and it is. Yeah, so it's all about sort of effectively. It's about class warfare in space. Like, it's so like, there's so much depth, and it has some of the best space and battle scenes and planetary battle scenes you will ever get in books. Like, it's so, like, it rivals like some of the 40k lore and stuff. It's so good, and he progresses really well. So like Pierce Brown, who's the author, it's just like, it starts off and it's kind of like Hunger Games. Like the first book, it's kind of like Hunger Games.
That's right. I
And
read that one.
yeah,
I've
so
heard that
it's
one.
like kind of like Hunger Games, but it evolves as they get old, and everything becomes more complicated and more going on. And it's like by the seventh book, you're just so completely invested in all these different characters and what they're doing and all the backstabbing that's going on, and it's just like it's phenomenal. It's like some of the best books I've ever read. Like I love it. So good. Yeah, you definitely should. Like if I can understand, because the first book is very Hunger Games, and you're thinking, oh, that's what it's going to be. It's not, because it goes from that. That's basically him as a student, and he basically moves from being a student, then starts taking on a part of the Rising, and then it's all about their fight against the against the Golds and against sort of like, you know, effectively the Queen and stuff. And then you have these next three books, which is about a civil war between the Golds and stuff, and then the new one, which is, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and it's so well done, so good. And the voice acting is a massive part of it, to the point where there's a character called Lysander in books, I want to say he's a child in 3. I think he's in 4. I think it's in like 5 or 6. I think he changed. So basically, there's one, and you're like, I like that one. That's a good voice. I like that. And then they change the actor in the next one. I was like, why? No, I was just getting used to that guy. So he changes it, but like, yeah. But yeah, if you've not read them, or listened to them, you should do. Like, really, really, really good.
Cool.
Right. Okay, we've got a little bit of time to talk nerdy stuff, and talk about gaming and toys and your 3D printers, and then we can finish all with some news from Mr. Jon Jo. So, when have you always been a raging nerd, or is that something that came with age?
I mean, a raging nerd, yes, but actually gaming and stuff, I bizarrely only started gaming about 3 years ago. I kind of always wanted to, like, I had Bloodborne as a kid, but never played it. But it was like sort of the things because I didn't know anybody really wanted to play it, and I sort of had it, and then I got myself it for my birthday years ago, and basically because I was a stand-up comedian, I could never sort of do these things because I was always around the country. You're gigging all the time, and you're, so you can't really do that kind of stuff. And then a few years ago, genuinely, because my wife went, like, I became full-time as an author, and she was like, you need to find a reason to leave the house that doesn't involve the dog, because you're just, all you're doing is like, I love you, but for fuck's sake, so go talk to somebody else. And then I was like, literally just asked around Facebook, and one of my mates, Rachel, said she'd play Blood Bowl and stuff, and that got me down to Element Games. And from there, I've sort of, obviously Blood Bowl's my main game, but yeah, I'm kind of like become such a lunatic where I literally got it for 3 years. And what happens is when I'm writing a book, I'm excited when I have time off afterwards to like game and stuff. So I keep buying stuff while I'm writing the book. And then thing is, it takes like 6 weeks for a game to show up, or if it takes a Kickstarter 3 years.
Oh man, no, tell me about Kickstarters.
Or whatever. I've stopped back at Kickstarters now because I've now realized that nothing ever turns up for like a year after.
This turns up at your door, you're like, what the hell is this? And you're like, oh, it's
I think literally nothing I bought yet on Kickstarter has actually properly turned up yet. And I backed like Zombicide, White Death. I backed Frosthaven or whatever. I've never played it, but I backed it. And it's just now it seems ridiculous. And that model seems a bit weird, where it feels like you're just lending somebody money and hoping that they actually do the product. But yes, so but I've got a load of that. And then but basically, like with Blood Bowl in particular, because that's my main game. I like the last time I think time before I was writing a book, and I was just like every like week I started looking at teams and I go, oh, maybe get that team, and I bought the team. But it doesn't show up for 5-6 weeks. You don't get the feeling like you've actually bought something. So I just kept like buying something, and then like the week after I'd finished the thing, like 5 deliveries turned up in one go. I should have, and some of them are still sitting only primed beside me. But yeah, by a ridiculous amount. Then I got myself like because I'm trying to develop games and stuff as well.
Ooh, interesting.
Because I've sort of become sort of slightly obsessed. Because the way my brain works, it kind of gets an idea in its head, and then it starts sort of poking away at it.
Excellent.
And Paul Wake from I don't know if you played Blood Bowl against him, but he's one of the guys. He's a good mate of mine, but he's that's right. You were in the same thing as him. He's like a lecturer, and he's actually a professor in game design.
Oh, he had a talk recently, didn't he?
Yeah. He's writing a book on Blood Bowl.
Right, okay.
He's coming out. I think it's coming out possibly later this year. So yeah, and me and him we're technically working on a kind of sports game, basically based around the idea when you and me played Blood Bowl. I think we had the same chat where Blood Bowl was great, but the stalling's really annoying. I don't like the stalling. It's a real flaw in the game. So I came up. I just wanted to do something sort of like Blood Bowl, but it would be a quicker game. And I've kind of gone through. What's been interesting is I got hold of an ice hockey game, which is great. We tried all these different ones, and actually the ice hockey game was great. The only bad side to the ice hockey game, which I thought was really interesting, was it's the bit where it tries to actually use the rules of ice hockey.
Right.
Where it does, that was one of the things where, because you're trying to mimic what an actual sport looks like, it can end up messing up the board game. So, but we looked at that. It was really interesting. I've kind of played a few different sports. I've been collecting all the different sports games and different ones, and I've sort of now come up with an idea of a potential way I like the idea of doing a sports game, which is going to be quite mental, but I think it'll hopefully be a lot of fun. And I'm working on that and a couple of other things, because I've also started playing Gaslands, which I'm sure you've seen.
I've seen the pictures.
I'm basically trying to establish a group, so I'm constantly trying to I'm eulogizing Gaslands and trying to get more and more people involved. I've had 10 people have a game now. And it's been, to be fair, it's great fun. And it's what's really good about it is the hobby part. Because, if anyone doesn't know Gaslands, it's sort of Mad Max racing, but the whole idea is you use Hot Wheel cars and you make them into Mad Max vehicles. And that is, I'm not a good painter and stuff, but my God, for hobby, that is the best thing I have ever done. Because I spent a day last week just weathering all the cars I done, and the most fun because you literally cannot get it wrong, because you're trying to make them look shit.
Yeah.
So if you fuck up what you were doing, it's fine. It's all weather. And it's just so much fun. And the game itself is just mad fun. It's great. It's one of, as a beer and pretzel, as the Americans call a game. It's great for that kind of stuff.
Like Blood Bowl, that was my first season for the water. I've been playing Blood Bowl since the polystyrene board version, second edition.
Yes.
The first edition was second edition in the sort of what is it, late 80s?
Yeah,
late 80s, yeah. Well, and it's probably, out of all the sort of Games Workshop games, I've played 40k since Rogue Trader and stuff, but I got burned out by it. Blood Bowl's the one that has always been in my life, and I've gone back to it and played it and enjoyed it and not felt bad about it. It's just, it has frustrating moments. I'm not going to lie to you. When you get 3 double skulls twice in a row to throw a block from your ogre and he gets killed, you want to throw the board in the air and walk out, but it doesn't feel, it feels like it feels like, one, you have to have skill to play it, and having played yourself, having played all the other people in the Water Bowl, it's I thought I was a good player until I was playing other people, and there's definitely strategy to it. There's definitely a thing. It's not all about, which you get in a lot of 40k. It's about the strongest army. There are sort of tiers of races, but you could win theoretically with snotlings or with goblins or with that. There's not sort of my friend John, he's playing snotlings this year. He's going to do it this season and stuff. And I think you could realistically, if you know how to play it properly, you could play it well and potentially win with that team. And that's what I like. You can have that sort of, and as much as I like my epic war games and stuff like that, but as much I like having just a small amount of miniatures, I don't feel bad about not, I've painted them to an all right level. I've some of them I haven't finished, but I feel like it's tabletop. Okay, it's okay to be on the tabletop and stuff. Whereas
it's much more manageable. Whereas 40k and stuff just seems so massive.
You're just So it got to the point, the last Warbit I was at, I sold 3/4 of all of my 40k stuff. I have a fraction of what I ever owned. I got rid of pretty much everything, only some really sentimental stuff and the odd bit and pieces which I may sort of just keep because I think it's a cool model, but I just got rid of it because it was just lying in a box, just lying there being just grey plastic, not being painted, just not being sort of done anything. And it stressed me out. It really stressed me out because I was just
it does. You feel bad about it, which is
exactly.
Because 40k and stuff, Blood Bowl is now the only Games Workshop game I play. Because the thing was, with 40k is just the fact that we play an element and stuff, and I think I might have said this when I was there, but I always think and there's a lot of people playing 40k around us, obviously, but I always think every time I look around, they're always explaining rules to each other.
Yeah, and arguing, and
and that's that. Whereas like, so I was like, one page rules I find really interesting. Because I just like the fact that it's basically, from what I can see, it's 40k if they weren't changing the rules to sell you more models.
Yep. I've changed my view. Like, I used to be a case of like, and I grew up on like, even like, the heyday of 40k when I was like 6th edition and 7th edition, where there was like, you couldn't get through a game without having to go through 3 different books to find all these different USRs, and you would spend hours and hours and hours. This was back in the day when the Northwest Gaming Centre stayed open pretty much until you finished, so you could be there 2-3 in the morning if you wanted to, because that guy, I can't remember his name, guy glasses, he would just fall asleep and let you play on, and then he'd lock up after you. But so like, I just remember going through all these rules and stuff, and I went through like, more complicated's more better. But in my old age, I've sort of realized that simplicity isn't actually bad. I play Song of Ice and Fire tabletop game, which is relatively simple to play. There's minor rules, and there's not a lot to it. Blood Bowl, there's not a lot of rules to it. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's basic-ish game. One of my favorite war games of all time is Axis and Allies Global, and it is literally just symmetrical risk-type board game with a few sort of rules for different units, but for all intents and purposes, it's super straightforward. And it just makes you feel better. You're not arguing about stuff. You're not you don't have that bad feeling because there's a different interpretation of a rule.
As well, because like I played Malifaux, and the thing is, Malifaux, the models are amazing. They're a bugger to put together. Like, and it's like you literally go.
Are they still metal now?
No, they're not metal, but they are. But they're like, they are not sympathetically made. Let's put it that way. When you try to put them together, so but they look amazing. And like, there's a mate of mine, Steve, who I met playing Malifaux, and he's actually won like the Element Games painting thing this year and stuff. And like they are models. If you're good at painting, they can do an amazing job on them. But my problem with Malifaux is, and I love it, the lore is great, and like a lot of it is really good, but they literally have like, must be hundreds and hundreds now of different, like you have all these different guilds, there's 8 guilds, and there's all these different teams in the guilds and stuff. And like, they're basically saying like, well, you have to play with a band, you have to play with them like 10 times before you get any kind of use with them. And you're like going, that's like 40 hours. Yeah. And that's just to learn one thing. And I was playing Malifaux, and I was like, I don't mind losing a game at all. But the fact I didn't understand what was happening was getting really, and I was like, oh, this is just too much. And it's a shame because there's so much about it. Like, it has this card thing it uses, like a playing deck instead of dice. Great mechanics. There's so much about it I love, but I think they've kind of just overdeveloped to the point where it's going. Like, I realized after a while watching YouTube and stuff, the people who were good at Malifaux, it was literally, they were playing it 4 nights a week. It was the only thing they ever played. Yeah. And it was just, I just like yourself, I was like, I just want to play a few different games. And like Gaslands is great because it's got rules, but you come to learn it, and it's sort of, there's such madness in it as well. There's a lot of fun, like ridiculous stuff can happen. Like, I fell in love with Gaslands. I think it was the first or second time I played it, where I tried to win by, you had 2 cars. We all had a team of 2 cars. And I ended up, the guy was about to go across the line. I ended up, one of my cars shooting the other car, trying to blow it up in the hope of taking him with me so that the other car could win. And like that, so that's just great. I love that. That sort of madness is fun for everybody. And that's kind of what I like in a lot of games, I think.
Yeah, I think the competitive side of things, as much as I don't mind in certain, like I'm semi-competitive and stuff. Like, I've done tournaments and things, but I'm not the sort of person who like really, really, really overthinks it. It's like, I like these models, I like this thing, and I'll just gonna play it, and I'll just see what happens and stuff. But I think the competitive side of things, coupled,
sorry, you might be distracted. A dog just walked in behind me.
Happy dog. Coupled with the fact that companies, I was talking to my mate Sam about this. It's like, companies, if they want to keep on making money, they have to keep on releasing stuff. And so because they're releasing more things, you're getting more units, you're getting more rules, you're getting more complexity, which causes the game to slow down and be less enjoyable. But the problem you have on the counter to that is, if they stop making models, they don't make any profit, and your game ceases to be supported. So you've got that double-edged sword there. Like, and I was thinking about, because I've been meaning to sort of do a long piece about sort of the effects of nerds with ADHD and being incapable, like myself, like people see from my room, having no impulse control, and because you see shiny things, you need to have the things, and you get to the point where you start feeling stressed. You're a bit upset because you're just like, you spent money you shouldn't have spent. 2, you've got all this stuff that you're not doing anything with, and then 3, you're just like, well, I don't even know how to use this stuff, and it's just like, and it seemed like for me. Especially in 40k, as much as it's got a lot of nostalgia for me, and I played tournaments and I like the people and stuff like that, it was getting to me that you had to change your army all the time if you wanted to be competitive. And if but what happens if you can't afford that? Like, I can, but there's a lot of people out there who probably couldn't. So if they want to be competitive, then they have to get a new army. And people are like, oh, you don't do that. Yeah. But that's not true, because if you look at all the meta stuff, there's always certain armies at the top, and they change. And so basically, if you want to keep yourself in the top, you have to keep on changing your army. And it's like, for me, I couldn't do that. I was always Space Wolves. I did sort of bad thing, and it's just like, I would take the good with the bad. But it still annoyed me because I am semi-competitive, and I would like to be able to win a game with units I like and stuff. And that's like, I feel good about Blood Bowl and stuff like that, because I'm humans. I'm always humans. They're not the best team in the world, but I feel like I could win games with them and stuff if I'm a better player and stuff. And I don't have to sort of think about rules bending and doing this and that, which you don't get, I don't think, in 40k.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, when you think about it, just when you were describing it there, it just reminded me of something else discussions having during the week. And you know what it is? Gambling companies in Britain, there's this thing where they always gamble responsibly stuff, which is always, to be honest, not because they understand they actually make, I think there's some statistic out there, so obviously I think it's something like 80% of their money comes from heavy gamblers. So they like this idea to pretend that it's actually people playing casually that are actually a large part of their market. The reality is, the dark secret is that the problem gamblers are actually where they're making most of their money. And it's kind of weirdly like Games Workshop, where they have the same model where it's the people who just keep spending money are the ones that they aim everything at.
Yeah. Exactly. It's limited edition stuff. Like, for me, it used to get me all the time. Like, and like, I got an ADHD diagnosis last 2 years ago. I'm currently on medication, which sort of helps my impulse control slightly, but it was just getting to the point where I was just buying stuff for the sake of it was a new thing that I needed, and it wasn't a sort of like, I just needed it because that book had came out and I needed that limited edition book because it goes with that book, and then I needed that limited edition one, I needed that, and it spiraled, and I was spending thousands of pounds. I was like, I was really, really bad, not only for my wallet but for my mental health. And like you were saying, it's really like gambling. Like, I'm trying to write a questionnaire for people about mental health and gaming and impulse control and stuff like that. And I'm trying to write out questions for it and stuff, just to sort of get a view on how people feel. And how do you feel before that? Does gaming actually make you feel good? Like, gaming does make me feel good, but in certain games I was playing, it was like a compulsion. It wasn't because I wanted to play the game, really. It was because I was so used to playing that game and nobody else played anything else, so I just played that game. And then there was a compulsion behind all the miniatures and things in the behind. And so,
then you're thinking, I've spent money, so I have to play this game because I've spent the money on this game and stuff. And sort of, and that's like, that's why I was so happy with Gaslands, because you don't spend much money. It's like the whole design is, you can do as much as you want on the sort of putting cars together thing, but it's actually Mike Hudson, the guy who makes the game. He basically just makes money out of the rule book, which is 20 quid or something. It's ridiculously cheap. And because I was like, even with Malifaux, which again, a lot of it I love, but I found myself feeling like I had to play it because I'd invested in it. And then I went, what am I doing? I'm coming home feeling annoyed and exhausted. I'm not going to do this anymore. As much as and I really like the guys I was playing with, to the point where I'm trying to convince them to play Gaslands now. But I increasingly now I'm trying to find that happy medium of stuff that I enjoy, that at the same time isn't too much rules and stuff. Because I'm the same, because like I'm probably in the sort of similar area. I've not been diagnosed, but how many stand-up comedians have now been diagnosed with ADHD? Like, it's a running joke amongst us that basically it seems to be like almost a defining characteristic. So many people in comedy, it's the kind of and like the way I was saying about designing games and stuff, because my brain just gets hold of an idea and obsesses about it. It's why I'm not a pantser, is because my brain just obsessively plans things. Genuinely, in all seriousness, because I was like talking about anxiety and stuff, which I sort of suffered from. And it's the way my brain works is in real life, if something's wrong, I lie there like, and my brain just goes around. It's like a bad piece of computer programming where you keep thinking about it. You get to a certain point, there is no solution. So you go back to the start again and start running through it and keep getting to the same point again. And the reason why I love being an author is that facility, that same thing. You are God in that world. You control everything. So your brain does that, but you can actually get to a solution. So you can actually get to a thing when you go, and that would happen, and then that would happen, and then this would happen. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Whereas with real life, if something's going wrong, you can't just make stuff happen. You have, and it's that's why I genuinely like the happiest I am is when I'm actually writing, because my brain feels like it's in control.
Well, that's it. It's one of those things like ADHD. They say it's like I have a bit of it's not a love-hate. Like I appreciate that it does some good for me in certain ways. If I hyper-focus on something, like, I can get in work or doing stuff for things, I can literally get stuff done so quickly, or I can do, some amazing things. The problem is like you're talking about your brain sort of flicking around. I'll be thinking about one thing in my head. I'll be walking the dog. I'll be thinking about one thing, which will move on to, I need to write about an article about this. But then it'll go on to, but then what about this? And it'll be something else. And then it'll flick on to something else and then something else. And then you've completely forgotten what your original thought was, because you're in something completely different, in a completely different area from where you were originally. And you're just, you've just confused yourself, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you procrastinate because you have no sort of control over those thoughts and stuff. That's the one thing the meds, I think, does for me. Like, I don't think it does lots for me. Like, I've been doing like a few sort of TikTok videos on it, just kind of going, I'm not feeling much in this. But one thing I've noticed, and it was only because I had to stop taking them for a couple of days because they didn't send them over. But my brain was just going ping, 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 ping. Like I was just like, it was mad. Like, now on them, your brain, like, I still, my brain's still active and you still feel normal. But as soon as you come off them, your brain starts going, aha, and then you start going ping, 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 and all these different things come in, and there's like that fight that's in your head all the time is there. It's back again, and you're just like, all right, okay, that I don't like that anymore. That's not a thing I want to be a part of, because it's just it's tiring. It's so tiring.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and like I must admit, like because I several people have said I should probably get myself, because the AD, because every time there is that thing where I always dislike generally with medical stuff if people are diagnosing themselves. That I always find that's a bit like, loads of people say, oh, I've got ADD or ADHD, and you kind of go, and have you actually looked into it? Have you spoken to someone, or have you just decided because you've seen a video that you're, you've seen a reference and you went, oh, I probably have that as well. But at the same, so I've always avoided saying that. But at the same time, like, even my wife's gone, you literally have everything that's on that list. And it's like, yeah,
it's hard.
Probably should talk to somebody about it and actually get a thing. So a lot of my friends are the same thing, yeah.
But it's getting sort of taken seriously about it. Is like, I remember, like, I've kind of had an inkling about it for a long time, but I just thought it was me and that's just how I was. But then it's just like failed relationship after failed relationship blasting through. Like, my dad died and left us a fair bit of money. Blasted through it like really quickly and stuff, because I was just like impulse buying the shit. Really, I felt fucking feel horrible about it now, because it was just it upsets me thinking about it. But it's just like, I had no control over myself. I was just literally going psh, psh, psh. So I took myself off to the doctor. It's like, I need to sort this out. Can't hold a relationship down. I'm blasting through money. Just in general, just my life is falling apart and stuff, and it's just like, I need help. And the doctor basically looked at me like, I've been getting a lot of TikTok videos and stuff about this and stuff. It seems like it's a bit of a fad. And I was just like, look, man, I appreciate that maybe this is becoming a more common now, but I think it's just because people are realizing what it is. Yeah. And I'm telling you now, my life is falling apart. My relationships are, I can't hold them together. I can't, like, and I just sort of opened up on him, and I went, okay. I'll refer you to Psychiatry UK. which was a long, long journey. 6 months to wait for a diagnosis, then another 6 months for titration, which I got kicked off of because I forgot to fill out a form or something, apparently, which is ironic because I'm fucking ADHD. I complained about it. I said to them, I said, wait a minute, I have to check a portal for 6 months for medication, and I'm ADHD. I'm going to forget, and and so I had to wait another 6 months for another diagnosis, and then another 6 months, so 2 years to get medication.
I think that the wait's got longer. I saw somebody talk about it recently.
Oh yeah, they're struggling with the medication and stuff at the minute.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean there is. It's great if people are getting more aware and realizing, oh, that's me. And don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of that. I dislike when people start throwing the terms around like, a bit ADHD, and it's like, if you just not. Like getting a bit annoyed by a mess does not make you AD. What was it? What's the word I'm thinking of? Sorry, not ADHD. The other one.
Obsessive compulsive.
Yeah. All this thing like, I don't like a mess doesn't mean you have that is not a psychological thing in itself. That just means that you like things being tidy. Whereas obviously there is things that are that level of sort of the compulsive thing, but it's very different. I don't like people just because if somebody actually has it. I think if they heard somebody just saying they've got it for no reason, I think would probably wind them up. So yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. It's just
but it's great that people are generally getting help.
Yeah, and I think it's something I think that if you are aware of it, you as much as you sometimes you just can't help yourself because your brain literally it's like a constant battle in your head between a devil and a devil, and they're just sort of fighting against each other about different things, and you get distracted. But at least you're aware of yourself and you can try and restrain yourself. And I found that as soon as I had that diagnosis, even without medication, I was aware of my emotional state, how I felt about things, and I can't say I did stuff like I chocolate and sugar and things are a massive thing for me, sort of buying crap and stuff. But I was aware of it, and I could try and curb it because I knew that wasn't just me. That is an issue that I have, and I need to fight against. So you
feel like you have some control because you have knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. The knowledge was the control. Whereas if you don't have that knowledge, you just think you are who you are, and this must be what other people are like, and so you just give into it and you just do your thing. And so that knowledge, that diagnosis is a massive thing, I think. So if it's something you really think, I think it'd help. It really, for your own mental health, I think it helps me. My sister's the same. Like she had, we're pretty sure my dad had it, but he would never. I remember my sister talking about it and said apparently at one point in time he did have therapy, but they just kind of went, well, there's nothing wrong with you, and you're just who you are and stuff. But we were if I think back about some of the stuff my dad did, I was just like, fuck, that's me. That was me. And I'm just like, yeah. So having that knowledge, having somebody there to say, yeah, we understand this is an issue, it makes all the difference. Even if you don't get the medication, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, it helps a lot with the understanding of it. Yeah, I think this got very heavy, didn't it?
I know, it really did. It really did. Apologies, yeah. It sort of went it did.
We were just talking about the hobby stuff I like, and then we sort of went, is this a problem?
Gaming, ADHD funk.
Have I been?
Okay, we'll get out of the dark zone and move on to Jon Jo and the news section. So what's going on, Jon Jo?
All right. Well, before we go on to proper news, I will just a little bit on the rumor mill. So we was mentioning earlier about Blade. So it's Blade's gone through a fair few directors, writers, probably cast members as well. But still, Mahershala Ali still supposed to be playing Blade, still supposed to be happening November 7th, 2025. So the rumor going around is Chad Stahelski, the director of the John Wick films, is said to be the front runner at the moment. Ooh. Which could be good because
I'm a massive John Wick fan.
And the idea going around is that Blade is going to be an R-rated film. There is going to be some gore as well as some quite intense action. If this does happen, the rumor is also stating that filming will begin on the 1st of November for obviously just over a year for production, which
That's
I think
pretty
isn't.
short.
Yeah, but then the Fantastic Four film only started filming towards the end of July, and that's coming out end of July next year. So
Yeah,
I
but
think
those have always been great though. So that's they can't miss it though.
Oh, that's a burn.
Yeah, I would if you're dead right, but I think it is a bit because apparently that's part of the problem with Marvel was they didn't have enough time to get effects done on some films.
Yeah, I think what's happened now, I think with Fantastic Four, I think they've already put in a lot of work on the effects. I think they've already got a lot of that stuff going because it's going to be an effects heavy film because it's supposed to be set 1960s, like this futuristic kind of historical tale, and it's. I mean, we don't know exactly what the storyline is, but we know that it's not in the MCU timeline. It is going to be a different Fantastic Four compared to what we've seen, but it looks promising. I think that's quite good. But so Chad Stahelski, I think if that is the director for Blade, I think that's going to be a good choice. I think that'd be quite a good direction.
Have you heard that The Goonies is potentially?
Oh
getting...
yes, that was on my list as well.
Right, okay.
Apparently that is. Well, because it can make money. That's why any of these do it. Yeah. Apparently
they're all signed on
for the. Apparently it might be filming as early as summer next year.
Oh, hang on, it's the same cast. What it's like? You say the.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Something like Mikey apparently has hidden some of the treasure, Free Willy's treasure, and with Free Willy, one-eyed Willy's treasure, and it's all about that, something along those lines, allegedly.
Yeah, but so like Josh Brolin, Gi Kwan, the Corey that was in it, I can't remember
Corey Feldman.
Surname. Corey Feldman, that's it. And Sean Astin apparently have all signed up for it.
Cool. I mean, I'll be interested in that, but as long as it's not actually just remaking the film.
No, it's not remaking the film. It's definitely a sequel. And also, as of today, and I know this is exactly geeky stuff, but Happy Gilmore 2 is in production. And to be fair, Happy Gilmore is probably my favourite Adam Sandler film, so I'm optimistic. I want it to be good. And apparently not just Adam Sandler, but apparently there's a few returning cast members, including Shooter McGavin himself. So that'll be quite fun.
Pieces of shit like you for breakfast. You eat shit for breakfast.
You eat shit for breakfast. Such a great comical film. So going on to some more of the new stuff. So a few months ago, we had the announcement Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum is in production with Andy Serkis directing the film as well as returning as Gollum. So news going around, Ian McKellen has been offered to return as Gandalf, which, I don't want to say it badly, but make sure you film it as soon as possible because...
That's what I was thinking. Is he is 84 and he injured himself badly falling off the stage.
He had that bad tumble. Apparently Orlando Bloom has also been talking about returning as Legolas.
Yeah,
well, he's available. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Having said that, did you ever see Carnival Row? The thing.
Yeah, I remember watching a few episodes of it. I don't remember that.
I quite liked it, but we just got over the fact that he was, to be honest, because it was him as a real hard man. Yeah. And it felt like, this is not the greatest. I know I can understand why he wanted to do it, but once you got by that, there was some interesting stuff in it, but it was a bit hit and miss.
Yeah. And just before we go away from Marvel completely, a lot of trailers and a lot of clips have started to come out for the Agatha All Along series, which is a Disney Plus's next step with the MCU. Which is it one of them shows that people ask for? Probably not, but it looks like they're going something a bit different because it's apparently 95% practical. So they're trying to keep the special effects as minimal as possible. Decent enough cast in it. So Catherine Hahn, obviously back as Agatha. Joe Locke, who is an up-and-coming British actor. He's one of the main characters. Patti LuPone as well is in the cast. And oh, God's sake, what's the name? Aubrey Plaza as well is apparently playing the villain in the in the series.
Where do I know her from? What's
Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yes,
Yeah.
So
She's the woman. She's kind of a little bit. They just have her looking annoyed at stuff quite a lot.
Yeah.
She's really. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Andy's girlfriend.
Denis Villeneuve announced that he is officially writing, or at least someone is officially writing Doom Part 3. So this
June. Did you say June or Doom? I was like Doom 3.
Dude, I
thought you said Doom as well. Actually,
how did he do a second one? June.
Yeah, Rock's coming back to do Doom. That'd be fun. No, June Part 3 is apparently being written as we speak.
Could be interesting.
I really hope that, because he's already said that if he does a Part 3, this will be the final part of it, and it would be Dune Messiah, which would be a really, I mean, that'd be quite a funky novel to adapt, and depending on how they go for it. It's I mean, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, it's sort of the two films have been good. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the next one. So yeah, all right, I'd buy into it.
Yeah, and let's go with let's finish off talking about some film trailers. So last week we had the trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I've got to be fair, I really enjoyed the Sonic films. I think they've actually been really good.
Keanu Reeves is in a voice in that.
Keanu Reeves is Shadow the Hedgehog. That is, and it's just, I like that they obviously. Anyone remembers when Sonic the Hedgehog, like the first film was first shown off? It looked horrible. Sonic looked fucking terrible. And they were like, we're gonna take it back. Don't worry, we'll make him look better. And I really enjoyed Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as well was really good. I'm glad that Jim Carrey is back as Robotnik as well, because I think that would have definitely there definitely would have been something missing if he wasn't part of this film.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, Keanu Reeves as Shadow the Hedgehog, that's going to be great. And it looks fun. It looks in ways it does look a little bit brutal, but it does look like they're trying to maintain that balance that has come from the first two films. So there is a heart to it. There is a good bit of comedy, but there is some stakes to it. And it looks like this could be, I think this is going to probably be the best out of all three, because it looks like they're really going for that direction of, we're tapping into what makes the games popular. We're getting some very dark themes. And we've actually got Jim Carrey playing both Dr. Robotnik and his own grandfather, Gerald Robotnik, which is
this could finally be the one that gets the Oscar.
Maybe. But that interaction that he has with himself in the film is great. Like in that trailer, it's and then on the other side of the spectrum, let's just put it this way: Jack Black is basically saying, "Fuck you all! I don't care about anything anymore." As he's in the Minecraft film, and it looks bad. I mean, I saw Jason Momoa's haircut, and I thought that was already off-putting enough. But it's like Jack Black, he's just wandered onto the set. It's like, do you want to have a little bit of work done? Do you want to shave the beard off? Do you want to change your outfit? Nope, I am Steve.
I guess though, it's like, it's for kids, isn't it? It's like, people who play like Minecraft's like, I don't know how old is Minecraft now? Like what, 12, 13?
15 years old.
15 years old, yeah. But it's all for the kids now, so I'll just like they'll lap it up, they'll love it. It's a Minecraft thing, it's a thing, it just sort of.
Well, it's one of the few things that Hollywood can get people in, because that's the thing. They're freaking out, Hollywood, because they really don't know what teenagers and people in their 20s want to see in the cinema anymore. Like they're like things like Borderlands and stuff was their attempt, and it just didn't hit. And like I was talking to my nieces and nephews recently, and they were saying, I haven't been to the cinema for years, any of them. Which was, so they're basically, there's this whole generation of people they don't know how to reach. So because of that, they're kind of panicking and just trying, like, Minecraft. They like Minecraft when they were kids, so let's try and give them that and see if they'll turn up for that. And
we mentioned this a few weeks ago, because I said I've only really been to the cinema. I mean, I used to.
I love it. I love going to.
I used to go to cinema like once every 2-3 weeks at worst. But I think this year I've only seen 4 films in the cinema, and that is really low for me. I'm shocked at myself, and and I think about some of the films I've seen as well, I'm even more shocked. But I mean, and you know, this is how bad I can remember. So Argyle was my first film this year that I saw in cinema, which, yeah. The second film I saw, actually no, Joe, we'll come back to the second one. So my favourite film this year, definitely Deadpool and Wolverine. That goes without saying. Alien Romulus,
Not seen
I
it
really
yet.
enjoyed.
I've heard
I
mixed
wanna
things
see that.
about it. I've not seen it yet, but yeah, I've heard like
Yeah.
it's good. It's not quite as good as obviously. Well, you can't get it. It's progenitors, but it's watchable, enjoyable. So
Yeah,
I heard it's very
And,
much kind of back to the original formula was what
Yeah.
my take I thought on it, but yeah.
And then the other film, because obviously I can't seem to say it properly, June Part 2, which was which I really liked. And do you know what? I have a I do have a soft spot for the book because I really enjoyed it when I was reading it when I was younger. Because I remember I got it as a Christmas present, I think when I was about 10 or 11. And I remember looking at this book, it was like this. I thought, how the fuck am I going to read that? But do you know what? I remember I started it, I couldn't put it down. And then the only other book I read after that was Messiah. And I remember thinking, my God, this is some trippy shit. There is some absolute, this is chaotic. And then when they started saying about, oh yeah, we might be looking at adapting Messiah for part 3, I was like, oh, please do. But at the same time, I don't know how it's going to work. But yeah, I mean that is my cinema experience this year. I'm sure there'll be more films. Sadly enough, I did work this out. I think, well, not sadly enough, new Beetlejuice film I still want to try and see.
Not seen it yet.
Yeah, I rewatched the first one over the weekend.
Is it out this week? I think it's coming out this week.
It came out last weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I rewatched the original on Saturday because I was suffering through. I was still suffering a little bit through man flu, and I just wanted something just to. And you know what? It's for a film that, you know, there is some parts of it that really have aged quite a lot, but it still really works really well, especially especially like a lot of the miniature scenes and like in like the waiting room and things like that, the door that just comes up out of nowhere, and some of the practical stuff I think has aged fantastically, and that's why I want to see the new one, because apparently they're keeping a lot of that going. They're keeping a lot of the practical work, and the CGI is very minimal. So yeah, I was like that.
It's interesting. There's some films from that era. Have you ever seen Scrooge recently? You know, the Bill Murray Scrooge or whatever. But the special effects in that work brilliantly by the most of the part. And like, bear in mind, like, it's better than a lot of modern films. It's amazing how good some of it looks, frankly.
Yeah, you sort of watch back films like that, and you know, if you watch back, even like Lord of the Rings, which is like some of my favorite films, you watch back, and some of the special effects look somewhat aged. But if you watch Scrooged, it doesn't. You don't feel like, you know, it was of its time, but it's good now still. It's good as it was.
Yeah. And Joe, even not last weekend, I think the weekend before, I caught like within the first 2 or 3 minutes of Terminator 2. I ended up just watching it all the way through, and that still holds up really well. Because again, that's a film that you think of like how good it looks, how much is put into it. They did say on one point of it, there's only 5 minutes of the actual film that's got computer generated effects, which is quite amazing. But then you do think as well, okay, there is probably a lot of practical stuff that goes in, a lot of trick shots, and even on a few occasions, using twins for certain scenes.
Oh yeah, they used the two coppers were twins, weren't they?
Yeah, and then there was the mirror scene when Sarah Connor is operating on the Terminator. It's not actually a mirror. There's just Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton are on the other side of the screen, and then it was Linda Hamilton's twin sister that was on the other side, and then
apparently Arnie tried to come on to her and she gave him short shrift.
Well, if you've read Arnie's book, you know he was quite a he tried to make himself the ladies' man.
Yes.
Quite a lot.
Have you seen the documentary? Have you seen the Arnie documentary? It's quite interesting. The Stallone one's quite good as well, actually. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
And Oh, Joe, I've got to mention one more thing very, very quickly. It's not movie based, but it is video game based. Concord. Have either of you two heard of the video game Concord?
No.
Nope.
For good reason, because it only came out a few weeks ago. It was a PlayStation Studios game. It was the next live service title for them to bring out. And within less than 2 weeks, it has been shut down and refunds have been given to any people that bought the game.
Always a good sign.
Yeah.
Steam is obviously probably the best metric for it because you can see how many people go on the game. The all-time highest play, and bear in mind this is supposed to be a live service multiplayer game. On Steam, it apparently peaked at 600 players.
So are you actually flying Concorde the plane?
No. It's like a shooter game. Yeah.
I was wondering because like, how is it like is somebody the co-pilot?
it's like yeah.
Someone else serving drinks.
So I'm flying 5 hours from New York to London. It's in real time. You know, you got to make sure that any turbulence you got to stabilize. And, no, it was a shooter game, and funny enough, Amazon announced a few weeks ago they're doing a video game series called Secret Level, which is like it's made by Tim Miller, and it's each episode is based on a video game, and it looks pretty good. And obviously, they must have thought Concord was going to be a big hit because one of the episodes is based on Concord.
Oh, right,
which,
okay.
Yikes. Has really done bad.
Well,
and
that'll end up being good telly then. If they'll actually
it's done by the guys who did Love, Death and Robots.
That's it.
So
yeah.
I'm quite looking forward to it and stuff because I really enjoyed Love, Death and Robots. So
did I.
Yeah. Okay, we've kept you long enough. It's been 2 hours, but you can generally tell.
The dog is literally trying to get me to get out.
Yeah. My dog's sort of getting whimpering outside as well. So I'm getting messages from my wife. So, but yeah, have you got anything coming up? Have you got any books coming out or anything you want to sort of kind of pimp out?
Not particularly. They're all. I think the next Bunny book's out in October, November, possibly, and then I think the next year there'll be a Stranger Times short story collection, and then there'll be the 5th book. Because I made the mistake of making the next book a Christmas book, and it turns out you can't bring them out in January. People don't like that, so it has to come out in October. Which is why people go, "Why is there a gap?" It's like because I thought of a really good Christmas idea, and then they said you can't do that, and I spent a week trying to come up with a new one and came back and went, I am doing that. Sorry. So we had to move it to October. So yeah, general thing. If look up C. Caimh Mc Donnell, look up the Stranger Times podcast. You can listen to some comedians narrating stuff, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, other than that, nothing at all.
Nice. Cool. Right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it, man. Thank you very much for spending some time. Last question. What's your team for the next season of Blood Bowl?
Oh, mate. I've been planning because I remembered I've been
3D printing. Yeah.
I printed out. I'm trying to make the ultimate corn team. So I've from 3 different parts of things. I've got different players and stuff. But then part of me thinking I should use a different team, and I've literally gone through. I own about there's 20-something teams, and I own about 20 of them, and I've still managed to come up with one of the elf teams that I haven't got that I think, maybe I should play that. And I'm like, so after this, I'm gonna have to buy a team when I've got everything going. So I have. It's gonna take me weeks, and then I'm gonna play Corn, which is the same team I played the last 2. I'm gonna spend the next 3 weeks annoying Alex with questions, and then I'm gonna pick the same team I always pick.
I'd say I cut out the middleman. I'm really boring when it comes to things like my team has been the same infinitum forever. I'm a human team. That's it. I keep the names stay the same throughout. It's just like even the players names bar some minor changes now and again, they generally stay the same as well. Just keep it solid.
Cool.
Right, okay. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. By all means, if you've got anything coming out, any books or anything you want to talk about, anything else, by all means, you're more than welcome to come back.
Cool.
But for tonight, I've been Mike Geary. With me has been Jon Jo Cosgrove.
I certainly have.
And our special guest, Caimh McDonald.
Thank you very much. Goodbye from Diller the dog. If anyone's watching on video, he's now going to go. We're going to bed now, Diller. It's all right.
What's the dog called?
He's literally Diller. He's
Diller?
literally trying to lassie me out of the room. He does this thing where he just comes up and then turns around like, "Can we go? Can we go? Can we go?" Because he can't. He's part staff. He can't relax unless everyone's in the same room. Bless him. Anyway, cheers, boys. Take care of yourselves.
Cheers, Queeve. Much appreciated, man. Speak to you